Have you ever wondered why a man becomes restless, almost haunted, when a woman falls silent? It is not merely curiosity that stirs him, nor is it simple desire. There is something deeper, something archetypal that rises from the shadow of his unconscious. Silence, in its raw, unyielding form, is a mirror. It reflects the unspoken fears, the hidden insecurities, and the unrealized longings he carries beneath the veneer of control. A man is often trained by culture and circumstance to respond to sound, to action, to the tangible. Words and attention are currencies of exchange, the measure of value in the dance of connection. But when these currencies are withheld, when silence stretches like a quiet chasm, it provokes an inner reckoning he cannot ignore. The woman who embraces silence is not passive, she is sovereign. In her stillness lies a subtle power, a magnetic presence that defies conventional rules. It is a power grounded in self-possession, in the refusal to feed validation-hungry egos. Her silence acts as a prism, splitting his projections into visible fragments: admiration, obsession, desire, anxiety, even envy. Every pause, every withheld reply, every unread message forces him to confront what he cannot control: himself. He senses the gap between his ego and reality, and in that gap, fascination blooms. The mind, unaccustomed to such equilibrium, begins to overanalyze, to mythologize, to chase what cannot be caught. Carl Jung often spoke of the anima and animus, the shadow and the projection. When a man encounters a woman who radiates calm, self-contained silence, he unwittingly meets his own projections, the parts of himself he refuses to acknowledge. Her quiet is a challenge, an initiation. It stirs a primordial curiosity, the same instinct that once drew men to mysteries they could neither tame nor fully understand. The more he tries to fill the silence with noise, messages, gestures, reassurances, the more he becomes entangled in a cycle of desire and disquiet. Her absence of reaction is not cruelty, it is reflection. She holds a mirror to his need, his longing, and in doing so, she awakens an obsessive intensity he cannot easily dismiss. Imagine this. You're sitting across from a man whose composure has always seemed unshakable. He appears calm, collected, rational. Yet beneath that surface, a subtle turmoil begins to swell. The moment she withdraws into silence, the very fabric of his perceived control unravels. Silence is a riddle he cannot solve, a space where his assumptions, his expectations, and his carefully constructed self-image falter. He begins to project meaning onto every glance, every pause, every absence of reply. Each quiet moment becomes a canvas for his desires, fears, and insecurities to paint themselves vividly, unconstrained by reason or reality. What he does not realize is that obsession is rarely born of the object itself. It is born of the vacuum she creates within the landscape of his psyche. Like a mirror reflecting the hidden corners of his soul, her silence forces him into introspection he never sought. Here lies a paradox. The more she disengages, the more he engages with his own inner world, albeit unwillingly. He confronts shadows he has long ignored, the fear of rejection, inadequacy, the gnawing sense that he is never quite enough. In this confrontation, he experiences both discomfort and allure, a duality that binds his attention to her presence even in her absence. This is the subtle mastery of feminine silence. It is not manipulation, it is the art of being fully present without performing, of existing without conceding control. It invites him to meet his own animus, to face the unacknowledged aspects of his ego. The Stoics understood this truth well. What troubles the mind is rarely the external world, but the interpretations imposed upon it. Her silence becomes a mirror of his inner turbulence, a test of his capacity for reflection and restraint. He begins to oscillate between longing and doubt, hope and anxiety, desire and fear. And in this oscillation, obsession quietly takes root, nourished by the unseen, unspoken forces of psyche and shadow. Yet obsession is not a flaw in him alone. It is the natural response of a psyche confronted with depth it cannot fully contain. It is the echo of his own unintegrated parts resonating against the calmness she embodies. In trying to fill the silence, he is, in essence, seeking to fill himself, to find completeness where he has long denied it. And this is why a woman's quiet is never empty. It is charged, fertile with psychological energy that catalyzes self-confrontation and desire alike. Some women understand this instinctively. They do not speak to manipulate, they speak to preserve their inner equilibrium, to honor their boundaries. Silence, in their hands, is a language more potent than words. It communicates self-respect, emotional sovereignty, and unshakable presence. When a man encounters such a woman, his unconscious recognizes the absence of submission, the refusal to validate his ego on demand. He feels a tension, subtle yet insistent, between the pull of desire and the discomfort of uncertainty. In this tension, obsession simmers, quietly growing stronger with each unanswered message, each withheld reaction, each patient pause. Carl Jung would argue that this dynamic is a dance between projection and individuation. The man projects his longings, fears, and shadow onto her, seeing in her silence both threat and promise. He experiences a peculiar fascination, a compulsion to decode what cannot be decoded, because in attempting to know her, he is forced to confront parts of himself he would rather ignore. This is the hidden power of her quiet. It reveals the unintegrated psyche. Every gesture, every absence of gesture becomes symbolic. Her very stillness becomes a mirror reflecting the fragmented depths of his inner world, and in that reflection, obsession blooms. Trauma and conditioning amplify this effect. A man raised to equate attention with worth, validation with love, feels the withdrawal of both as a subtle crisis. He is compelled, almost biologically, to seek resolution, to restore equilibrium. But the resolution he seeks is illusory, for it cannot be imposed externally. She does not bend to soothe his anxiety. She does not speak merely to reassure. Instead, she holds space, and in holding space, she creates an arena where he is faced with his own incompleteness. The mind, unaccustomed to such freedom and reflection, begins to fill the silence with obsession, as if trying to reclaim control over the uncontrollable. The Stoics would note here that desire is not inherently dangerous. It is attachment that disturbs the soul. The man's obsession is a symptom of attachment to a reflection, to an idealized image of her rather than her reality. Her silence forces him to distinguish between the two, whether he realizes it or not. He is caught in the interplay of ego and shadow, desire and reality, absence and yearning. And in this interplay, the intensity of his focus on her quiet becomes a powerful testament to the depth of human longing and the magnetic pull of what cannot be possessed. If a man truly begins to notice, he senses something extraordinary in her stillness, a quiet that is not absence but presence. It is a presence that does not seek to please, does not negotiate attention, and does not shrink to fit expectations. She is an enigma because she refuses to be consumed by another's desire. Her silence carries a rhythm, a gravity that draws him in, yet simultaneously reminds him that he cannot own what is whole and self-contained. In trying to decipher her, he is forced to confront the illusions of control he clings to, the habitual need to externalize validation, and the shadows of his unmet emotional landscapes. The mind of a man confronted with such quiet enters a peculiar state, oscillating between reverence and anxiety, longing and uncertainty. He obsesses not because of manipulation, but because the silent woman triggers an internal alchemy. She activates what Jung called the shadow, the parts of himself that he represses or denies. Her refusal to fill the void he instinctively craves pushes him into introspection, albeit unconsciously. Each moment of her quiet acts like a psychological mirror, reflecting his incompleteness back at him, demanding that he reconcile with his own fears, desires, and unacknowledged potentials. Modern psychology echoes this archetypal truth. Humans are drawn to what challenges their habitual perceptions of self. The silent woman is a paradoxical force. She invites attention, yet resists it, presents herself, yet remains unknowable. Her equilibrium highlights his imbalance. The intensity he feels, often labeled obsession, is in reality a confrontation with his own inner turbulence. It is a recognition that he cannot possess her without first confronting the parts of himself he has avoided. The vulnerability, the inadequacy, the unintegrated emotions that linger beneath the surface of social facades. In his attempts to resolve this tension externally, he becomes ensnared in the magnetism of her unshakable presence. Yet there is also beauty in this dynamic. Her silence awakens a man to the depths of his own psyche. It challenges him to move beyond superficial pursuit, beyond ego-driven attachment, and toward self-awareness. He becomes more than an object of impulse. He becomes a participant in a silent dialogue of shadow and soul. Each pause she holds is an invitation, not to submission, but to reflection. And in that reflection, he glimpses the transformative potential of desire unanchored from expectation, of fascination untethered from control. The more he observes, the more he confronts, and the more he is compelled to grow, whether he knows it or not.